Why is recorded in front of a live studio audience.
Jimmy Buffett's friends are fascinating,
Yeah.
like all over the board.
Mhm.
And I guess Pee-wee, it's a little bit more intriguing, but because
I
he
forgot to
doesn't
tell you
want
my
to sit
favorite
on a
Pee-wee
yacht
story.
in St. Bart's. But yeah, no, do tell me.
So I wish I could remember who it was. It was a comedian. It was somebody like, it wasn't Patton Oswalt, but somebody like that. And Pee-wee was doing the like revive show that he did in LA, like, I don't know, 10 years ago, something like that. And they had put in the request, like, hey, can we just stop by and say hi to Pee-wee? And the guy had his kids with him. And so after the show, they stick around, and then someone's like, yeah, Paul wants to see you. So they go onto the stage. He is still in character, and the kids' minds are blown. And then Cherry starts moving. He had the actor who moved Cherry the puppeteer stay there for the kids. So just Cherry would start moving, and he'd be like, wait, the show's over. What's Cherry like? Cherry's
That's
real?
so cool.
And they're like, it was the coolest thing because it was very intentional.
Yes.
And just tossed off like this thing that,
oh my God, I would have cried my eyes out.
I know, right? I was just
That's
like, this
amazing.
it's the greatest thing. And that the nonchalance of like, you're not going to catch this. It's just like, that's
awesome.
That's what our backstage is going to be like.
Yes, our backstage is going to be unreal. It's going to be craziness. Like, I
We'll
still
fly
want to be like,
drones and
yes, we'll have a wax museum, and we'll be like when Phyllis Diller
we'll bring our waxer with us at the end
we'll
of the wax
definitely have
museum.
a waxer at the end, of course. But like when Phyllis Diller went to the Hollywood Wax Museum, and when she's bored, she would replace herself with herself. And people would come through, and all of a sudden she'd start moving and talking to them. It's like the greatest thing ever. That is one of my life goals, to be able to do that.
This is Why, with your hosts, Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling.
I'm going to start using darling.
And the kids tell me I have to stop saying, describing things as brilliant.
Oh, I do that too. There's no way you're going to stop, because we both use that word so much that
it's such a better.
It's like we can't lose it because we both say it. So it's like constantly hearing it and getting put back into our brain.
Right, exactly.
But it's an outstanding.
It's not a normal traditional response. It's something a little more. And what if something is truly just amazing? Like, amazing doesn't accomplish.
Yeah, but everybody uses amazing. And I hate the word amazing, even though I overly use it. I hate it. Brilliant is a far better descriptor.
I think brilliant implies like somebody made this. This was created.
Yes.
Like, to do something. This was something someone knew or came up with or accomplished. Brilliant sounds like you did something. Amazing. A sunset can be amazing.
True.
And I mean, brilliant does work for sunsets, I guess, but the idea that like this is the word that is better.
Grace is the word.
Yeah, better encapsulates human achievement, which I think the show is about, if nothing else.
Absolutely, brilliance and human achievement.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a great word.
It is. It's the perfect word.
It's that word stays.
Yeah. I think so as well.
Creative muse. As I mentioned, I just want to be there and be part of it and be a student and be a teacher and just hang out. How did this come to be?
Well, it started that I was a musician, and somebody asked me to come in and do a children's musical at their school, at like a private school at a church somewhere. And I said, sure, I'll do it. And from there, I realized that I really loved it. And then it just became this way I supplemented my career as an artist for decades. And now it's a career. It's its own thing. And I found that I love it, and I find it very fulfilling.
Well, and it keeps growing and growing.
Yeah, and I hope to grow it, and I think we're growing it in a way that's like slow but steady.
And you're right now primarily in New York, correct?
That's correct, but we do have a mission to eventually take the model that we've created and making it national.
That's, oh, which
Well,
is amazing. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say before we go too deep into everything, we should also explain exactly what Creative Muse is, so folks
Why
know
would
the
we do
backstory.
something like that?
I just, I don't want to tell you how to do your job, but
Go.
so yes, Jamie, what exactly does Creative Muse do?
We basically do educational programming in informal education at the moment. So that could be after schools, community centers, working with adults or children, but we mostly focus on youth. And we go in and we do all sorts of classes, and in all those classes, we use this model that's designed after the creative process. And it's sort of a 6-phase process with values intertwined, using the acronym CREATE, actually. And from that, it can be applied to anything. It can be applied to math, it can be applied to sports, it could be applied to folding your laundry. And so that's sort of what we do. We have artists doing it currently, but it could work with any educator. It's a model.
And you cover, oh, go ahead.
Nope. Take
Nope,
over.
go ahead.
Nope.
Oh my
Please.
gosh, go. Okay. Primary, geez, oh Pete.
Usually we do this in the private.
It's like Hollywood Squares.
It totally is. It's like something.
But which one of us is the center square? Is the big question.
We should just let
Scary.
Jamie have the center square.
Yeah, it's true.
And we should be the contestants.
Mm.
We deserve to have to be the contestants. So the programming covers all aspects of art, just not music, correct? It's everything from visual to theatrical and everything in between.
Yeah, but the model, and we're hoping to expand it to comprehensive programming, can be applied to any subject. So in other words, creativity and the creative process can be applied to a class on economics.
And
the creative process could be used to teach math, science, engineering, sports. Mr. Miyagi does it pretty well in The Karate Kid.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, he does okay.
And I can talk all about it if you want. But anyway, so the idea is this model can be used for anything, including your life. It could also be used as a sort of life model, and a set of values.
It seems like the most obvious thing in the world in some ways, taking the things you use and working in an artistic way, or just making art and sort of porting it over to, like you said, to math and other things. Do you get a lot of pushback from educators and other groups, sort of the saying like, there's a lot here we can tap into? Because certainly schools, everyone knows that arts funding is getting cut first, and then
right.
other stuff. Math ain't going anywhere, unfortunately.
I don't get any pushback, but I do have non-believers.
That might even be harder in some ways.
Yeah.
So they're not necessarily pushing back, they're just not like listening. But and that might also, but I think that's going to change soon. I mean personally, I'm writing a book about it that's being published through Forbes, and we're looking to eventually start charter schools using this model. And I think the enrollment numbers, like in DOE schools, says a lot. I think, and there's something in the air. I think people are ready for something new in the school systems, a new way of learning. a new way of collaborating that allows people to solve the problems that we have. And those antiquated learning models really need to go, and the numbers are showing that parents agree.
Yeah.
I think kids definitely agree as well.
Kids, I already knew that. I'm like
Yeah.
I'm like the kid, like whisperer. I love kids. I get along with them, they're right on my wavelength.
Yes, agreed.
Because
Same.
kids, and what I learned from studying creativity is you unlearn it. So
Mhm.
you're actually born with this innate ability to think outside the box. And as you get older, you get put more and more into a box. And
And
so, yeah.
when it just seems to the acknowledgement and the understanding that people approach learning differently, that everyone kind of, the wiring in one's brain is certainly not not a one size fits all, and approaching things in this creative way has got to, seems in many ways to make all the sense in the world, that it's not a graph, it's much more of a curved road.
Yeah, and that's what's so great about this process is the flexibility of it. And there are academic studies out there that said, like, I found like the creative process is really good and any student can access it, even children with special needs. Yet nobody seems to be putting two and two together that maybe they should be using that more frequently. And instead the DOE has these complicated models with like 9,000 parameters, and this thing is like 6 things and anybody can use it, and it can be done in any order and access at any entry point because it's creativity, right? But there is a process, and that's what's crazy about it. There is an actual process to creativity.
How often do you find people, not disbelievers, but people who don't believe there is a process, or who are like, I'm creative, I don't have a process, nor do I need a process, just let me be creative?
Yeah, I usually have to explain to them that everybody has some process, even if the process is a one-phase process. Like if they're a performing artist and they're only doing transformation, which is like the exposition phase, right?
Mhm.
The T in create, we call it, right? So that's all they're doing. They're just, but even that, even a person who's a performing artist, they have to have something that their performance is based on.
Yeah.
So it might be based on a memory or something they knew or something to happen to them. That's E in exploration. That's where you got the idea from. So it's either you researched it or it came from something that happened to you, like a girl who broke your heart. You're writing a love song, or an idea you read in a book somewhere that 10 years later sparked a new idea. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
It
does.
makes
It totally
complete
does.
sense. I feel like we spend a lot of time on the show talking with artists and creative folks in various forms, and yes, there is a process to that, and for a lot of people there's that kind of sense memory or something you're drawing on, and for a certain subsect of people it's usually a girl who done them wrong. So makes all the sense in the world. And so I think the other thing too with this, for you at least, has got to be that feeling of watching a child process this and learn this and understand something that is either a difficult concept, or like it's got a short-term reward, never mind the longer term bigger thing, but just that moment of like connecting with someone where they go, oh, now I get this. It's got to have really kind of, the residuals of it have got to be just continuous and constant.
They're so beautiful, whether they're instantaneous or whether they're like the next day the kid brought in a clay tool because now they all of a sudden want to be a claymation artist. They didn't even know what claymation was yesterday,
Right.
So it's just this idea of possibilities and taking, not only in the moment, but taking it home and like having a dream that was built on something we started so quickly too. I can only imagine what we could do over time. And I've seen, especially post-pandemic, I've just seen kids' faces just like from the day we walked in to now, like just transform as people.
That's amazing.
To know their personal power is really
Yeah.
what it's about more than anything.
Well, and that's a huge deal. And that's a huge deal for kids of all ages, including our ages. But it's got to be, do you find that most of the kids that come into the program already have had some exposure to the arts? No.
No, some have had none, especially because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I have to tell you something that really, because I've been doing stuff with kids my whole life, although now it is different because post-pandemic there is a difference.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for so long that I've seen the evolution of kids, right?
Right.
I've been doing this since I was 18. So I'm like 45 now. Social media has changed kids too, you know, and how they use. But really, the most inspiring thing about this has been the adults.
Yeah.
For
As far
example, I took this model to California to a big like conference, and I trained educators and adults on the creative process, and some adults were crying because they said it was the first time in their life they had ever been creative.
Wow.
And that they didn't even know that they were capable of being creative. And
Yeah,
I cried. I cried because I was like, adults. So I'm not just looking to reach kids anymore. I started with kids, but adults are so much harder.
Yeah. I would
They're
imagine.
so blocked. They're so blocked.
So
when
blocked.
you reach an adult, it's like, I believe me, reaching kids is the #1 goal, but like this new thing that I discovered with adults really blew my mind. Like having an adult who's been blocked from their creativity for 30 years, you know, unblocking that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I was gonna say, my first reaction was go, "Oh, that's such a gift," but I'm like, that's something that's innate and in everybody at all times. It's just sort of turning that faucet on. Yeah.
I believe every person has it, and every person is special, and every person has some magical thing that hasn't been necessarily tapped, you know?
It's amazing. So where is the program now, and kind of where are you heading? Well, you know, how's it growing and getting out there?
Right now, so our thing is to do programs that are focused, sustained, with a lot of money in one place instead of like spreading ourselves thin. And we're doing this community program now with the Artist Employment Program in the East Village on the Lower East Side at the Campos Community Plaza, a housing project development community center. And we've been running programming there. They had a flood, a sewage flood, and we continued through that. So like it's really been almost a lesson in our own process to go through resilience, because that's one of the phases. That's one of the phases of creativity and of any creative process, which could be applied again to anything, including our work. And so we went through a flood and we got through it, and we just like taught these kids like how you can use a creative process for anything, even live through a flood. And
I was going to say that must be something that you guys, like you said, can also utilize yourselves on a daily basis. Which
I do it now.
What a better proof of concept than that.
I do it, and then I started using it with my own kids because I was like, I can't figure this out. And then I said, why am I not using this thing? Look, I'm not, it's not a cult. There's no Kool-Aid to drink, but it just really works, I just want to be careful because George Carlin said something brilliant where he's like, people are great. Every person I meet is like a universe that they have so much magic in them. It's when they get together that I don't like them.
It's true.
They start like making lists of people they don't like. And, so I have to be mindful of that when I'm like, we have this model and I know it works. And
yeah, it's that fine line. it's that fine line between implementation and handing out robes. I get it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, but it really does work, and that's why I stress the flexibility of it. And I even encourage people, and this is something I'm thinking of doing with people who work for me that might be blocked from it, right? Because some artists, like you said, they already think either they don't have a process
Mhm.
or they have a process that's different than this one.
Right.
Say, okay, you know what? Create your own acronym and just tell me what your process is. Like, it doesn't have to be create, and it doesn't, but everyone should know what their process is, or have this thing, this sort of code of honor and ethics and process that they can go back and live by. Because when you have something like that, it makes your life easier, and it's fulfilling and joyful.
But it's probably really hard for them to actually do that. Like if they have, their alleged own and they're gonna make it
Yeah,
themselves.
I haven't tried this yet. I literally came up with this idea like this morning, and
Oh, it'll be
sure.
good, but people will freak out
Found
and
it out
stress
first
out.
before anyone else did.
Yeah. Cause I'm thinking like, if you asked me, I don't think I could do it. I mean, I could, it'd just take me some time.
What's your process?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good question.
Again, it does not always in the same order.
Right.
Right. How long did it take you to come up with the acronym, but this idea and this approach to learning and education?
Ironically, 35 years, but no, I'm just kidding. I realized that I was doing something that already existed, that had already sort of been codified from like Western science perspectives. And it was sort of a stumble upon, like penicillin, which is also in my book, because that was a creative process, this discovery.
Penicillin's in your book?
Yeah. Like I
Okay.
just talk about how the creative process could also be, the C is connection. So forced connections, ideas that were meant for one thing and end up being for something else. That's part of creativity. Like, something like that idea. I lost my train of thought. Where were we?
The origin story of sort of how you kind of discovered all this.
Like my friend literally was like, "Can we have an acronym?" I said, okay, I'm gonna do. We knew we wanted creativity, because I knew that was a skill I wanted to focus on. I had been at a conference where they told me all of the jobs in the future are going to be jobs you've never heard of. And we're already starting to see that with all these like AI jobs that no one knows even who to hire to do what anymore, And I said, ooh, so creativity is going to start to be the skill that everyone really needs more. And I knew I wanted to do creativity. So I said, well, let's do create. And using my own creative process, which I didn't realize was a process, I started researching, because that's the E, exploration. You either have your memories or you go out and you do research to get the information, right? So I started exploring the creativity in academia, and then I noticed there were people who already had a process. There's usually like 4 phases, and it was like incubation, iteration. It's used a lot in like architecture and design thinking. So I started seeing, I had taken a class in architecture and racism, and I started just tying all these ideas together. And I realized I could use create to create the process and make it like easy to remember, digestible and cute. And good for kids. And using the word create, I designed the 4 phases of the creative process, and I added 2 extra ones. The A in awareness adds a mindfulness and an Eastern element. I could go into it more, but that's the general idea. It's about taking breaks in the creative process, and learning that breaks are actually important. So in all of our classes, we have what we call a brain break. So somewhere in the middle of the class, the kids take a brain break. And so they learn by design to schedule breaks into their lives. It's like a work-life balance.
That's
Right?
fantastic.
And then the last thing we added was the E, enjoyment. So you're not focused on the creative process and what the outcome is. It's the whole process, enjoying it. And that's it. That's sort of like what I added that was like unique.
But that's such a huge element of it.
Yeah.
To
Well,
like,
that's an aspect that our generation does not do well
no, not well at all.
at all.
Our generation being Generation X.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's such like the idea of the break, the idea of the enjoyment of it and the enjoyment of the process. And just, I mean, that one idea in itself is pretty revolutionary on,
Right.
you know, if you didn't enjoy how you got here, why the hell are we here?
Yeah. So I write a chapter on Warren Buffett,
Mm-hmm.
how he uses the creative process, because no one would think, he's creative. He does very sound, like he has a process to how he invests that's based on he only invests in things that he can hold in his hand, like.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll never see him investing in anything other than something like that, a brick and mortar type thing. And he says he tap dances to work every day, and like he just loves his job. And so I put that in there, and like, that's how you can have it in different fields.
Yeah.
And then you add
Creativity
to
could be in finance. It could be in anything.
Right.
yeah. And then when you combine that, as you were talking about the Eastern side of things, I was thinking about David Lynch and all of the meditation and the work he does. And for him, that's part of his process is the meditation and what he gets. And again, you don't normally see someone like David Lynch and Warren Buffett in the same room together,
Right.
as much as I would like to.
It should be.
They really
It
should.
absolutely
Oh
should
my
be.
God, that would be a fascinating conversation.
Yeah, that's a dinner party.
Oh, please. But just that idea of pulling from all these
That's
places
a
and
podcast.
It is definitely a podcast
get-
for sure.
write that down. But it's so great. So where do you go from here? Because clearly you didn't have to push hard to convert us, but
Right. I think we were converted before, but still.
we can play hard to get.
I like that too. We like a little challenge.
Yes.
we can act like we're not interested, but so you've got it in one area in New York, correct? And then
Yeah, I took it to California, and I hope to continue to do that. Trainings, taking it to other organizations, taking it to other states. They were like, "Where can I get this?"
yeah.
But go ahead. You were gonna finish.
No, just I you see other states putting in other ways of learning that might not be the most helpful or understanding, let's put it that way, of other concepts and ideas. Is there interest in putting this in public schools in a way and getting this out to more people? Is that growing? Are you
That's my
seeing?
goal.
Mhm.
That's my goal. My goal is it doesn't have to be this. Like I said, I'm not like, Christopher Columbus over here or something. I just would love to see something like this that really focuses on the creative process being put into schools nationwide, and then move away from rote learning. But if they wanted to use this, that'd be even better, because in the beginning I was struggling. I had created a list of values. So all of those things that create are values: connection, resilience, exploration, awareness, transformation, enjoyment. But there were also phases in the process, and I'm like, how could they be both? Oh, this doesn't work. I made it too complicated. And then I realized that was what was beautiful about it, because it also gives you a set of values now. It's not just a process, but it says we value connection, so we value collaborating. We value enjoyment. We value enjoying the process. We value awareness. We value being aware of the people around us, not just ourselves and our own process.
Novel.
Yeah. So, and what ends up happening is the whole learning becomes about collaborative problem solving, not like just competing for the sake of individual fulfillment.
For more information about Creative Muse or to donate, check out their website, creativemuse.org.
Why the Podcast is produced by the Professional Production Company. Please be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts because we're shallow and need constant validation. For more information, you can check out our website, whythepodcast.com. And like everyone else, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Today's show was recorded and produced by Heidi Hedquist and myself from our world headquarters located on the second floor of the Professional Office Building, centrally located downtown. Our reluctant executive producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our willing producers are Rachel Allen and Randy Jeanette. Our intern is Zach Jackson. This was Fort Philippe. Thanks for joining us. Flash, we're coming home.
Nigel, is that you? Are you here, Nigel?